Okay, you guys. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming to our live tonight. And of course, we have Alice and Brett from the Prosecutors podcast.
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys. How are you doing?
Y'all are so fancy with all this. You know, they got the intro thing and the fire in the background. We don't have any of this stuff. We got to get you guys to help us out.
I like creating. I love creating that. But yeah, so love Christmas. And but anyways, just so happy that you guys are joining us today. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. Thanks for inviting us.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. So just for everyone out there, you guys are from the Prosecutors podcast. Do it, Brett. Do your spiel about yourself. Braggadocious, whatever. Go on about yourself.
Oh, we are for the Prosecutors podcast. I'm Brett, and I don't know. We have a weekly true crime podcast I do with my good friend and better podcasting half, Alice.
Hey guys, I'm Alice, and we don't have just one podcast. We have two podcasts. Brett may have forgotten though.
We still do a weekly podcast. We just do two of them.
But we're attorneys who talk about true crime from the legal perspective, and we both worked as prosecutors together and kind of bring that experience to bear as to what we see in a lot of the cases that the media is following.
Yeah.
Excellent. Now, are you both in Alabama?
Yes.
We are.
Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Yeah. And that's Central Time. That's hence why. I actually see. I'm not gonna lie. I'm organic. I don't really like to know much. I like to, even when papers come in, I like to do them and share them as we're doing stuff with the viewers. So I actually didn't know you were from Alabama because I'm not that person to do my homework. That like just saying.
It makes it more spontaneous.
Honey, all I have to say is you don't have to go very far with Brett's accent to know where he's from.
True that. Now, I was going to say,
I found out a lot about him just looking for a thumbnail picture today.
I know. I was like, normally I do thumbnails, and I'm like, because I ended up doing a live this morning because of the Delphi and Richard Allen moving places. So and then I was like, I hadn't even slept. I was too busy watching Christmas movies. I was like, can you please do the thumbnail for tonight on there? So thank you for that.
It's better than what we do. We basically do stick figures for our own thumbnails of ourselves. Yeah. So you guys are just like
way ahead of us.
I was like, well, I had to add in the tear of paper to his thumbnail because I know you guys have like that brownie kind of tone to your avatar, and you're like, that's kind of like black and that brownie color or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
an old newspaper or something.
Yeah. Yeah. On there. But yeah.
I would like to know, so whose idea was it to start a podcast? Like, how are you both just, working in the prosecutor's office one day, and then, you guys just decide, I'm assuming I know the answer, but whose decision was it to be like, hey, we'd be good together on a podcast?
It was totally Alice. She forced me to do this. I had my hands behind my back.
That's what I assumed.
Yeah,
opposite.
No, we were working together, we were sharing a wall, doing our day job, prosecuting cases. And I've always been really into true crime, and I'm also really big into taking breaks while at work. And that usually involved me getting up and walking over to Alice's office and saying, hey, have you ever heard of this case? It's this crazy case about this girl named Maura Murray. And I would just tell Alice these stories, and we talk about them and sort of bat them back and forth. And Alice, would have her wonderful insights that everybody knows about now. And at some point I was like, we should do a podcast. I think we could actually be pretty good. And I was like, no, over my dead body will we ever do a podcast? and that continued for a while, but eventually, and I'm not exactly sure how it happened. I know
exactly how it happened.
Okay, why don't you tell us how it happened? Because I'm still a little unclear about why we had
you're
this
right.
podcast.
That's verbatim. I was like, over to my dead body. I never want to hear my voice recorded on a microphone. No one wants to hear us talk about true crime. You're crazy, Brett. And then it was like 2 years later, I was so beat down because I was on maternity leave and I wasn't sleeping because I had a new baby. And that's when you should make big life decisions. So Brett caught me when I was low. Completely subscribed. And he was like, if you're not sleeping, you might as well just do a podcast. And I was like, that sounds like a fantastic idea.
That's
And
cool.
then the pandemic happened, and it was like perfect timing because we don't have anything to do. We might as well just record podcasts. So it worked out really well. The timing did. I mean, I wish there hadn't been a pandemic, but the fact that it happened made it a lot easier for us.
I'm gonna move this for a second. I was gonna say I can't believe that it's been like coming up to 4 years, I suppose, from that. That was a weird. I know YouTube doesn't like it too much, so we try to say the C word, because YouTube. But anyways, that was just a weird. You know what it felt like to me? Can I just say? I remember I was going into Home Depot. You guys have Home Depots out there?
Absolutely.
Love Home Depot.
Okay. So I was going into Home Depot, and across the PA system, it was like, please stay 6 meters or whatever it was apart from each other.
Wonderful advice.
Did a sanitary, whatever. And I'm watching everyone come out with their masks. And I felt like I was in a zombie, like one of those robotic moments where you're just like, everything you went into was this PA system going off, and it was the weirdest feeling. And I was an optician at this time, and I was helping the boss out because everyone was closing down, so I was the only one. Thank you, subscriber. I was the only one working, and it was like I felt like. Do you guys remember the movie The Comet, where Comet happens and you're like they're just shopping in the stores and there's like nobody around? And that's what it felt like too. It was a 2-minute walk to work, and it was just like weird. It was just weird.
It's definitely the closest thing to a zombie apocalypse, I think. Well, hopefully any of us will ever experience.
Yeah, it was. Right. I never thought that I would I thought it was going to last about 3 months. I figured. I was not expecting as long as it lasted, for sure. And that's when it started feeling really crazy, like just everywhere you go, people are jumping back 20 feet, like, leave my glasses out the door.
I'm not a hugger, so I appreciated it.
The craziness that you're describing, though, it was such a, at least in our lifetime, kind of a once in a lifetime experience that we all lived through that was very difficult for, I would say, just about everybody. And we, I think the fact that we started during the pandemic, we didn't know what was happening. No one else did. But we've now heard so many fans who started listening to us back in 2020 say, those were some really dark times for me. My school shut down. I had to do college online. I had to be separated. I lived alone, no pets, no friends. And if it weren't for listening to you guys talk about your feelings about all of this, I would have felt so alone. And it was a very special time, I think, for a lot of podcasters when everything else was shut down, right? Like TV shows were not filming, movies were not being made, and a lot of kind of the media industry shut down except for podcasting. And I think it was very, very intimate and special and a lived experience that had we not started then, I wonder how we would have made it in the long term, because a lot of our fans, I think, have been with us since literally day one of we started recording like the day before the shutdown in March of 2020. And so we kind of just rode that entire time. So that's kind of getting a little bit deep, but it's been a journey for us through all of this
but
experience.
It's completely relatable, and it's fair because I met Sunny in December or January of 2022. But Sunny started this channel in 2020, right, Sunny?
Originally I started it in 2014 or something, apparently.
It was during the Suzanne Morphew case, though, right?
But it was, right. I wanted to be a voice. I was pissed off because I felt like once this search happened for Suzanne Morphew, who was a mother that went missing in 2020 on Mother's Day. And I was pissed off because it seemed like it just felt like everyone, after this search ended with nothing to show for it, it was like everyone, it just was like, ugh. So I was like, oh no, oh heck no. Like, I'm going to keep her voice out for Suzanne Morphew. And then it was like, but Delphi, can I just say this quickly? So when I was 26, because I am very much of a deep empath, so people's sadness hurts my heart when they're telling me stories. And so when I was 26, I was so tired of listening to the news and reading newspapers, because that's all I was doing every day to work on the C train in Calgary. And it was like, just death, mother tossing her kid over the bridge, death, death, death. I felt so heavy all the time because I just instantly feel a pain so badly in my heart because I'm always thinking ahead, like how that mother is feeling, how the husband is feeling, how the children are feeling, and it becomes too much. So I had literally stayed away from it until one day, a couple of years ago, obviously when I started the channel, in a sense, again, I seen this Delphi case, but I didn't know. I just clicked on it. It was about this bridge, and there was a picture of the two girls, and all of me said, "Don't click, don't click, do not click." I'm literally telling myself, "Do not click, click," and then here I am. So
Right.
it started off with Delphi because I just kind of looked at it. But then I went over to the Suzanne Morphew case because I was like, Delphi is so messed up. Like this case, whatever it is so messed up. They got freaking 2 sketches. They got this. So I was like, yeah. And so after doing Suzanne, then I came back over here, and I like during a break because I was so, when you eat, live, and consume a case or something, because you got no balance going on. And so that's kind of what happened. So I was taking a break from Suzanne, decided I'd come back and look at the bridge guy, and then that's where I sit to this day. So it's been a journey, one that I've never expected, because I feel so horrible for anyone that has had their child, their family member murdered or missing. So I see the good in what we can do in helping people out and trying to bring awareness, or talk about cases and.
Well, that's the thing about Delphi. It's a case that I think grabs anybody who finds out about it. It instantaneously, the fact that there's the photographs, the fact that you have these 2 young girls, the fact that they're out, just doing exactly what they should be doing, enjoying a beautiful day in the park, right? And this horrible thing happens, and not only does it happen, but you have the voice of the killer. I mean, just so many different things came together, and I think you're not alone. And particularly if you are somebody who's very empathetic, it's a case that's really hard to get out of your head. I think that's one reason you see so many people who are. And it was a case that, very early on from when we were doing the podcast, it was a case that we covered for a long time and wondered if we'd ever even have an arrest. You can debate whether it's solved or not, but at least there has been an arrest, and we didn't know if even that would ever happen, because like you said, the different sketches, and just there were so many questions. So I don't know how it's going to end up, but it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Alice, quick question for you.
Sure.
Do you want to give me one of those special words like you give to Brett when you're like, you're super fabulous, or whatever that word is? Or you
sure, like to describe you?
I'm kind of just.
I would love to. I would absolutely. So what you're talking about are superlatives. We are word nerds. Since we're lawyers, we love words so much that we made it our profession, and so we like to call each other superlatives at the beginning of our episodes. And Sunny, I think yours is just absolutely obvious. You are clearly the most brilliant of all Sunnies I've ever met.
There
Adam,
you go.
Don't be jealous, Adam. Be jealous, okay? For once, somebody said I was brilliant.
Brilliant in so many senses of the word.
How many Sunnies do you know?
Right.
Hey, we don't need to get into those kind of details.
Yeah, that's specifics.
Details.
Details indeed.
We don't want to leave Adam out, Alice.
Oh.
Well, of course not. He's obviously audacious Adam over there, taking pot shots at Sunny. Have you ever met a more brave man? Because look at
I love
Sunny.
the alliteration. Alice is very good at this. She's just like, she comes up with them.
Words all day.
Yeah, I know. Again, it's the whole. I like I said, I love watching your podcast. I'm not gonna lie. It's not like I've watched every episode. Because as a creator, you're always working and doing stuff and stuff like that. But I definitely, like I said, when I've come and watched you guys, it just feels very homey to me. Like,
Right.
When you feel very welcoming and you're just listening to you guys and your chemistry together. You know, unlike mine and Adam, me and Adam, we don't really like each other. We just pretend to. No, just
I can
Speaking for
tell
you
y'all
two.
love each other. And I think it's
Right.
what you're creating here with this fire ambiance in the background is the
yes.
homey feel, right? Like we always say this is the law
Or homely
and
even.
home.
Oh
do
my-
not call anyone homely. Brett, careful. Walk back from that ledge. As your attorney, I'm going to tell you to shut that mouth. But kind of that same conversation you're talking about, we say this all the time. True crime, I think there's an existential reason that it draws not just us. It's one of the most popular genres for a reason. I think it says something deeply about the human experience. And with that, obviously the legal system is a part of true crime. And our legal system, whatever country you're in, is supposed to be of the people for the people, and it's supposed to be understood by people. And so even though Brett and I are trained in the law, our goal is to be able to speak about it in a way where everyone feels that they can be a part of and take part in the justice system, because you should feel empowered. That is your justice system. That is the set of rules and the set of consequences that we as a society have decided to adopt. And it's really important that it's not just, controlled by an oligarchy or a few powerful people. It truly is yours, the public's.
Yeah.
And so that's why we speak the way we do. I mean, that's also
Yeah.
because we can't be anything but ourselves. But I think
Right.
that's incredibly important to us.
Well, no, I have to say, personally, when I've formed an opinion or I've read legal documents in a case, and I don't have any law experience, but when my understanding of something is confirmed, then when I listen to one of your podcasts or something like that,
You
I
guys do that
definitely
to
am
me
like,
too.
I'm like, yeah,
I was like that too. I was like, yeah,
I
that's
feel
what
a
I
little proud of
said.
myself.
Yeah.
And I've never spoken with either of you, but I will say we do have a mutual friend who I have relayed a few questions to
Fig?
Brett through, and that's Fig Solves. So
Hey, Figgy, I see you in chat.
Fig, I know you're in the chat. So
Mhm.
Yeah.
if he said anything negative about me, it's
Ooh,
probably true.
can I, Brett and Alice, can I do one thing for a special friend? He recently, sorry to call you out, Tom Webster. Not sure if you heard Tom Webster, but anyways, he recently lost his job on December 1st. So now he's making comedy videos, and he's funny. It's one of those, it's one of those people that when if you don't know him, you think dry humor, and he laughs at his own jokes. And he's so funny. He literally did it end of the quitting day at work, and he's like spitting gum into a freaking garbage can, and he's taking a oatmeal container off and throwing a little bug in it for whoever opens it eventually. But anyways, it was a really funny video. But he asked one question, and if you don't mind if I ask it, because this is a
Fire
favor
away.
for
Go
Tom.
for it.
He just says, "Hi y'all, hi y'all." Am I saying that right there, Brett? Hi y'all.
That was
Hey,
so
y'all.
good. It's like
You
you're
did
from
great.
Alabama.
Perfect.
Right.
Honorary
Or North
Southerner.
Carolina.
It's a Canadian side in there.
There you go.
How many pages long are most Frank memorandums? Would Judge Gall have seen many in her career and been surprised to see a 136 Franks memo?
Well, I think that goes to the fact it's not really a Frank's motion.
Yeah.
It's a press release. And, if you look at it, it doesn't start to talk about Franks and sort of the Franks issues until I think page 106. I may be making that up, but it's around there.
136.
More than 30 pages is a really long Frank's motion, probably not even that long, because a Frank's motion is just the first step. You're supposed to be establishing a prima facie case that something was left out or something was included that was inaccurate or there was some sort of intentional misleading or something along those lines. So usually what you would see is, and this goes back to what y'all were talking about with the whole legal writing thing, and you read a good piece of legal writing, whether you went to law school or not, you should at least understand it. Now, you may not know whether it's right or not. You may not be able to figure out whether or not they're right on the law and all that other stuff, but you should be able to read it, and they lay out what they say the law is for you. And they, cite some cases and they tell you what it is. And you're like, okay, that sounds about right. Then they lay out the facts for you of the case. And you're like, okay, that sounds right. And then they say, and because those facts, we're going to apply the law we talked about earlier, we win. And it really should be sort of obvious. And that's not what they did. They didn't even really get to the law until the last page. And it was kind of, it's a very, as a Frank's motion, it's very strange. As a piece of media, as a piece of advocacy, public advocacy, it's very effective. And I think you saw that. So, we talk about that a lot, how it's called a Frank's motion, but they just needed a vehicle to get that message out. And that was the vehicle they chose.
Yeah, they sure did. What was I going to say? Fig solves. I have to do it. Adam, you're doing well. They can't even tell you're nervous as heck talking to two of your favorites.
Never should have mentioned his name.
He Fig solves. Audacious Adam is killing it over here.
Killing it.
So real quick on the Frank's motion thing. Yeah, I mean, these types of legal briefings, especially for Judge Gull, who's been on the bench for a while, she'll have seen many of these. And the thing is, it's not whether you see a ton of them, but there are certain types of legal proceedings that you can request in criminal hearings. And the rules are set ahead of time, and the law is always there for the judge. So the judge never has to be an expert on, say, Frank's or on any particular proceeding before them, because each case has a new set of facts that you want to the judge to apply them to. And that's why in every brief, there's not only the facts of your case, but there's a whole legal section of your case, because the law is constantly developing. New Supreme Court cases come down and it shapes what the jurisprudence is. And so it doesn't really even matter if she is a quote unquote expert in specifically Frank's, because all judges know how to research and apply facts to law.
And look, if you want to compare sort of the Frank's motion to other pieces of legal writing, if you don't follow that a lot, but you follow this case, read the mandamus petition, read the state's response to the mandamus petition, and see how they're laid out. It's completely different, right? I mean, those are both written much more like your standard legal document, laying out the law as they see it, laying out the facts as they see it, and applying those facts to the law. And the Frank's motion just didn't do that. I mean, it's barely a Frank's motion. And I expect, assuming the Supreme Court does not reinstate the old lawyers, that the new lawyers, it wouldn't surprise me if they said, hey, that was fantastic piece of legal writing, but we're going to go ahead and do our own Frank's motion and then sort of re-argue it. And if you recall, they did the Frank's motion, and then like a week later or so, they filed an addendum to it, and it was basically like, hey, we sort of forgot to make the Frank's argument, so we're going to do that in this addendum to the Frank's motion. And that tells you all you need to know about the purpose.
Who just says, what determines a grand jury getting involved? So I guess in general, what determines a grand jury getting involved? Seems that there would have been a better route to go for this high profile of a case. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, explain that if you could.
So some of it depends on a lot of it depends on where you are. So so there's two kinds of crimes, felonies and misdemeanors. Misdemeanors are low-level crimes that you can be sentenced to less than a year in prison for. If you can receive a year and a day in prison, it's a felony. Under the United States Constitution, if you're charged federally, you have to go through grand jury. You have a federal right to grand juries. That's in the Bill of Rights. But that provision of the Bill of Rights does not apply to the states. So every state can determine their own way to find probable cause. And that's what you have to find. And everybody has the right to that you can't be held and tried for a crime unless the state can meet the probable cause standard to charge you. And then the jury decides whether you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So probable cause just means it's more likely than not, essentially. It doesn't even mean that, that a crime was committed and that you're responsible. So there's a few different ways you can do that. You can do it through grand juries. You can do it through sort of just a preliminary hearing, filings, that kind of thing. And really, it just depends state to state. Some states do just about everything through grand jury. Some states do very few things through grand jury. You may remember in Idaho, the Idaho case, they don't normally do grand jury. But in that case, they went ahead and did the grand jury for Brian Kohberger, received the indictment, and then could move forward without having to have a preliminary hearing where all the evidence was going to be discussed. So it really just varies from state to state.
And that's kind of the beauty of federalism in the United States, at least. Each state is its own sovereign. And in this case, that's why jurisdiction being, the prosecuting entity here would be the state, can kind of pick and choose their own rules based on the people who live there. And over time, it gets refined. Obviously, we have federal constitutional rights as well that do apply.
Yeah, we've had Travis Williamson, who's a lawyer from Austin, Texas, and he's been helping us with all regards to this paperwork. He was in chat one day, and I'm like, want to consider coming on a live? Because for me personally, I just don't understand all the stuff. I mean, regardless that I'm from Canada and it's totally different over here, so much more privacy rules with people's information and different things, and the ability to have all these affidavits and all the different paperwork like you guys can do in the States and stuff like that. But it's really been a blessing for me to listen to you guys, to listen to defense. I like to always listen to both sides of what you have to say. Like some of the things that I've said, like Adam was saying, I go, woohoo, that's what I said. And I'm not even a lawyer and I didn't even know shit. But yeah, you just sometimes go with your heart and your gut about, sometimes the paper doesn't make sense.
I love a legal document. Like it gives me a rush. Like people are like, these are so boring. I get like, I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, there's a new motion for continuing, anything. Like I'm looking up like Indiana codes and like it gives me a rush.
But that's so awesome that you do that, right? I mean, there's a reason that we do want it on paper. We want the briefs because it's not just based on emotion. It's not just based on who has the greatest dramatic flair in court. It's based on, what the facts are written, and there are certain standards you have to make. So you're right, because when you have to reduce something, your arguments to writing, you can't just wave your hands around and appeal to emotion.
Well, I've seen one thing, and I could be completely off base here, but one thing that I've noticed, and and it could just be a stylistic approach to writing a legal document, but I've throughout the Delphi case specifically, I've noticed a very confident approach in the way that the prosecution has written their responses or their motions. Whereas I feel like there's been a lot of superlatives. Like I feel like there's a stark contrast in the way that those motions have been written from the now ex-defense team and the prosecution, and I feel like that shows a certain amount of confidence from the prosecution in the case that they have to present.
I think you're totally right there. I mean, just take the Frank's motion, 136 pages from the defense. And then the response was 10 pages, something along those lines, and I think that's a good way of putting it. You may say confidence. It may also be not hiding the ball, right? When a judge, both Brett and I clerked for judges, and that's kind of like residency is to medicine as clerkship is for lawyers, is we help judges prepare for and make their rulings. And so you kind of see behind the curtain of the judge and see how they decide. But when you get a brief that is much longer than it should be based on the arguments, because sometimes you have complex arguments, you need to explain more. But when you have a ton of pages that are superfluous, like you said, you begin to think, what are you trying to hide? What are you trying to mar? Why are you making smoke and mirrors? But when you have a filing that is to the point, it doesn't argue emotion. It says, this is the law. This is why it's in our favor. This is the law. This is why it's in our favor. You feel like you're dealing with a straight shooter. And that is, a judge looks at that type of filing and thinks, I can trust what this attorney is telling me because they're not trying to spin some sort of story that isn't there within the law.
And you also have to always think about the purpose and the audience. As Alice was saying, in our office, I deal with a lot of the written product, and I oversee a lot of the lawyers. And I had a young lawyer, and Alice reminded me of this, who I gave them a brief to write, and they wrote a great brief. I mean, they covered that issue every way they could. But the problem was it was an absolute slam dunk winner for us. And I went to him and I said, hey, this is a great brief, but the judge is going to get your brief and they're going to see how much effort you put into it. And they're going to think, seems like this must be complicated. This must be a tough issue if they're going to put this much effort into it. And so, and sort of along the lines of what Alice was saying, my advice to them was, we're going to go ahead and file this one and see how it goes. But in the future, really think about that, what you're signaling. And how you write it is as much as what you're saying. And think about your audience. The prosecution's audience really is the judge. I mean, they just want to win the motion and move forward. The defense has a broader audience. And the Frank's motion is a good example of that. And it can be reversed. But in this case, the defense wants to get their theory out to the world so that people have the opportunity to digest it, not be shocked by it anymore, consider maybe it's a serious theory, so that when they get to jury selection and they're picking a jury, it's not the first time. The jury, they're not the first time they hear about Odinist isn't in the opening statement. You can imagine how jarring that would be if you got selected for this jury and the first time you hear the Odinist theory is literally when the defense stands up and says it wasn't my client, it was a cult that did this. So they're one of the reasons that they approach it the way they do is because they have a different audience. And I think you always have to remember that when you're reading these, like, why is it the way it is? Why are they focusing on the things they're focusing on? And the other thing, and this is the last thing I'll say on this, the deck is stacked for the prosecution typically. Usually the law is on our side. And usually the defense is trying to change the law a little bit. And you see that a lot in the mandamus petitions. The law is not really on the defense's side as far as retaining the attorneys. They really need the Indiana Supreme Court to step out a little bit and say, hey, we're going to expand the definition of the Sixth Amendment right to include a right to continuity of counsel when they're appointed. And they need them to do that. Whereas the prosecution's like, hey, guys, what are we talking about? Just here are the cases where we win. Let's just do this thing. And they have to be much more expansive in the way they approach it. So I think that's why you see that sometimes. The prosecution saying, hey, let's just stick to what the law is. The defense is saying, but wouldn't it be better if it was this other thing? And when you're trying to do that, it takes a little bit more than just that sort of confident recitation of what the law has been before.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Figgy, we're going to do this one for Fig. Fig, I think you're so special. Don't you? Okay, you are. Say the new defense team doesn't go the Odin angle. This will be the last question for that. Because like I said, we promised that we wouldn't go on this whole, and even though some of those comments were nice and generic more so thank you guys. So say the new defense doesn't go the Odin angle. Can the prosecution bring up what the former defense did and use it against the new defense? I think I know the answer, but I'll ask anyway.
So it doesn't really serve the prosecution to bring up the Odinism angle. And the reason is these are affirmative defenses, or they're not defenses, I'm sorry. They're alternative theories to the case that the prosecution shouldn't care about. The prosecution has its theory of the case, and that's what it should focus on. And so far, you can see in their filings and their responses, that's exactly what they've done. They have not tried to combat or engage in this Odinism theory because it doesn't serve their purpose. Now, if for some reason the new defense team in trial affirmatively brings up the Odinism angle, yes, the prosecution will respond, point out all the ways that it, is unlikely, it couldn't have happened that way, but it doesn't serve the prosecution at all because they're the ones who have the burden of proof to show why Richard Allen is the one who is guilty of the crimes for which he is charged. And there's no reason to bring up an old filing from a former defense team if that particular angle has been abandoned by the defense. By the way, the defense in general can bring up lots of different theories as the case is going on to try them out, see if they work legally, factually, and then they're not bound by any of these angles until they go to trial. And so even if the former defense team was still the defense team and they went to trial and they had filed this Franks motion, but at trial they're like, you know what, we tried it, didn't work. The public didn't buy it. The judge didn't buy it. The facts don't support it. We're going to go to trial. Now we're fighting for our life because we're in trial. That's not a good story to tell. We're not going to do it. Prosecution can't hold them to it because trial is anew and they have that right to test all these other theories out.
And it's important to remember that what lawyers say is not evidence. And this is an instruction that's given to every jury, even in trial. What the lawyer says is not evidence. So the fact that the defense filed that motion, I mean, these are legal. They're fighting over legal stuff in pretrial motions. Juries decide facts. They weigh evidence.
Yeah.
So the prosecution can't bring up what a defense attorney said. Now, if Richard Allen, imagine a situation in which there was a prior hearing, a suppression hearing or something. And a very unusual circumstance, Richard Allen takes the stand and says, well, it was Odinist all along, right? And then imagine he testified at trial and said something else. That's a circumstance where the prosecution could bring up what was said in the past because it's what the defendant said. But the fact that lawyers filed something doesn't mean anything.
So the last thing that I want to ask about this whole Delphi thing is, Do you think you think we're gonna hear back before Christmas or after Christmas?
Possible to know. I mean, I think if the longer it goes, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
The longer it goes, the better it is for Richard Allen, because the Supreme Court of Indiana could very easily look at these filings and issue like a paragraph opinion that basically says the issue of whether or not counsel, there was a violation of Sixth Amendment rights, not appropriate for mandamus. There's not a clear right. Therefore, we dismiss this at this time. And he can bring it up on appeal, basically. If he's convicted, he can bring it up on appeal. They could say something like that. Or they could write a very short opinion saying, you just don't even have this right. The longer it goes, the more likely you have a situation where they are seriously considering it and seriously considering an opinion that would take a relatively, a relatively out there position that in Indiana. And that's the thing. I mean, we talk about this sometimes. 50 states. We talked about it with grand juries. 50 states. Every state can have a different opinion. The Supreme Court of the United States has basically said you don't really have any rights when you have an appointed counsel. But Indiana could say, well, not in Indiana. In Indiana, we're going to say you do have these rights. They could do that. I think the longer it goes, the more likely you're seeing something like that. But it's so hard to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Kind of on the administrative side, just to remember, is that while Delphi may be, on all of our minds, and it's the most important case that we're all following, the Indiana Supreme Court has hundreds, if not thousands, of cases on its docket. And many of these cases may be pending for months, years even. There are, famous cases that may be pending for years and years that the Supreme Court doesn't get to because it has such a busy docket. And, just from having worked in the court system, we know that December is a real time that people take off. And when you have the Indiana Supreme Court, you have not just one judge like you do with Judge Gull. Judge Gull is the judge in her courtroom. The Indiana Supreme Court has multiple justices and they have to vote. And even if they don't all agree, someone may be writing a dissent. Someone may be writing a concurrence opinion. There may not just be even one opinion coming out of this. And the drafting process takes time. You circulate it to all the other judges. They get to comment on it. You may revise before you come out with your final product, because these opinions are read by all. They have, binding precedent across the state. So the justices take a lot of they know it's very important to get these opinions right. So even if it's relatively simple from our perspective, a lot of work still goes into each opinion that gets published.
Right. And I do want to ask one more quick question, and just only because of the fact that it happened today, and I know it's only a speculative question because no one can really answer it without any of the facts. But what are your thoughts on Richard Allen getting transferred to another Indiana Department of Indiana Correction facility today?
That's like further away.
I honestly don't think you can read much of anything into it unless you know the reason. If this weren't a case we were all following so closely, I mean, these are the kind of things that would happen that nobody would really pay attention to. The Department of Corrections has various reasons for keeping people in various facilities. It'd be one thing if he'd been transferred to a jail, because that's what his attorneys were asking for, but he really could have been transferred for any number of reasons. It seems like, and you guys probably know more about this than I do, just reading a couple articles about it. It seems like this came from the Department of Corrections. The Department of Corrections suggested it, and Judge Gull approved it. So it wasn't his new lawyers, for instance, didn't file something that was granted.
Right.
It seems like it came from DOC. And honestly, we often talk about this. I deal with this a lot because I deal with a lot of appeal stuff. And what the people who run the prisons do, it's almost like they have their own little government. And judges and prosecutors and everybody, we're just we have no idea why people are wherever they are.
I mean, it could be as simple as everyone knows him in this, a jailhouse. So every time he goes out to lunch or he goes to the bathroom or goes out into the yard for, outdoor time, it's causing a ruckus. And we just it's very difficult to keep order here. So we just kind of need to rearrange, our people.
Or they transferred all the Odinist guards to another prison and they wanted to go there.
That's obvious.
There you go.
Or maybe he could have been threatened. There could have been somebody in the prison who threatened his life. I mean, you see this. There's, just a couple. Kristen Smart, the guy Flores, the guy who murdered her. I think he was attacked in prison. Derek Chauvin was attacked in prison. It's famous people draw attention, and there could have been a credible threat to him, and that's why they did it. There's really until we know, there's no way to know exactly why they did it.
I just knew I had to ask because people are like, well, you don't even ask about the transfer.
Well, because we
Adam, you can ask any question you want. It's fine.
Yeah.
Oh.
You got flirting right here. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's okay. We're friends down over here. Right?
Sonny, don't you worry. You're still the most brilliant in the room.
Yeah. Well, I will ask one more question really quickly. Is because I think I know the answer to this, but I've seen a lot of people speculate today that they find it suspicious that that the Attorney General of Indiana signed that order transferring him, but is the Attorney General is the head of the Indiana Department of Corrections, correct?
So well, it depends on the state, but it's not. He is the chief law enforcement officer. Probably the way it works in Indiana, and this is speculation, is that the sort of legal side of the Department of Corrections are all assistant attorney generals, and he oversees them all. I doubt the Attorney General of Indiana sat down with the document and really thought it through before he signed it. Most likely, that's just sort of a form thing that when the Department of Corrections does this thing, his office signs off on it, and that's probably what happened.
Okay.
Oh, Alice, get ready for it. Just hold on, Alice. When this the super chat goes off, you're going to be doing this. Rocking around. But
when I was in middle school, we had a like the school play had that song.
Tell me all
I
about it.
learned how to swing dance.
Yeah.
And I killed it, man. I still remember that to this day. Me and my
Swing?
partner, we blew everybody else away. Yeah, we were rocking around the
Man.
Christmas tree.
No.
In 5th grade. It's my greatest accomplishment to this day.
You got a pic to prove it or video?
I don't. And the people who've seen me dance would never believe it.
I don't
But in
believe
that-
it. I'll tell you that
But on
much.
that moment, on that one moment, that
Yeah.
one shining
Star
moment.
was born. But
This is awesome.
thank you.
Love you all.
It's a dream. It's
I love it. That
We
is
love
so
you too.
cool. Love you.
on there. Yeah. I thought I put a Christmas song to it when a super chat goes off. So you never know when it's going to go off. Meaning
That
it
makes
could be
me so
5
happy.
seconds.
I don't
more
know all
Christmas,
the
the better.
great words you're using because I clearly don't know anything about YouTube.
Yeah, I don't
but
even
it
know
made
what
me
I've
happy.
heard of super chats, but I'm not really even sure what they are. We're like the
Okay.
worst YouTubers ever.
We are so bad.
I think you're both doing okay.
Did you guys?
No, I will say I saw it. I saw a portion of your last 2 videos, and I had not heard of the case of the Jameson family. So, is there anything you wanted to say about that case? Because I'm intrigued to actually go back and watch both the episodes now that I listened to a little bit and I read a little bit about the case. But it seemed like a fascinating case.
So yeah, the Jameson family is one of those cases that I feel like is probably pretty famous on YouTube. I love YouTube videos. I love like top 10 YouTube videos, biggest mysteries, like that kind of stuff. Jameson family often shows up on that. It's pretty rare to have an entire family disappear for the length of time they disappeared, and then have them be found. Number one, be found dead, but number two, have the photograph of the youngest member of the Jameson family, which is another reason it's a tragic case because you have a very young girl, and then a video of them, and then the strange things that happened beforehand with rumors of satanic involvement and all this other stuff. There's a lot that comes together that makes it a sort of a classic true crime case. And Alice and I, we always try and look at these cases and peel away some of that, frankly, to get to the core of what's most likely to have happened. I'll say this. We're doing back-to-back family disappearances. The Jameson family disappearance is really famous. The case that we're doing next week is not, but should be. And it is a disappearance of a family. And unlike the Jamesons, they were never found. And when you hear that case, I think your mind is going to be blown even more than the Jameson family. But also, we were able to highlight a few issues on why that case, nobody's ever heard of it. Or not nobody, but it doesn't get the attention that maybe the Jameson family case does.
Wow. Well, now I'm intrigued.
I was going to say, and another super chat's going to go off in a minute. It says that, it's going to read it out to you in a minute.
Oh.
Okay, and then Charmaine's super chatting. So every time you hear it, you have to.
This is so cool. I don't know what these super chats are, but I love all of you sending them.
Well, they're people that just because they love a channel and they want to donate and support the channel.
Oh,
I just want to say that Sycamus
kind.
BC on the Shwishwip
Okay,
is just as beautiful as Okanagan.
hold on, Creed. Let me teach you how to say these words properly.
Sunny's about to have a conniption. She's like, whoa, you can't come on my show and disrespect me like this.
It's only because Charmaine sent me your podcast and she's Canadian.
I have to deal with all these Canadians.
Yeah, and so she's like, you have to listen to the way that they say, which is called Sycamoose.
I did not know that.
Sycamoose.
I did not know that.
I'm just gonna say that I think Sycamus is.
And I know that you butchered Shuswap as well, but that's like me trying to say things in the States sometimes. So it's Shuswap. Yeah.
Wait, say that again.
Shuswap.
See, the problem is, I spent some time in Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, that definitely would have been Shuswap.
Yeah.
There's no question. Shuswap.
You also have Worcester there, which is not spelled Worcester.
Worcester. Yeah.
Whistler. Yeah. I think I remember Alice butchered Kelowna. It's Kelowna.
I butcher a lot of them,
But-
and I feel so bad.
We just
about
do
it.
the best we can, okay?
It's people that pick on me.
Well, you
too.
heard me pronounce superlative earlier.
There you go.
No, but
English is my second language. I have an
If you ever need to know,
Yeah, Alabama's number one.
if you're ever questioning a word in Canada, just be like, Sonny, how do I pronounce that?
I will definitely
Like-
do that.
Oh, Christmas tree, have a happy holiday.
Diana at Super Chat, $5. Thank you. I've been a huge fan of the Prosecutors podcast from day one. Podcast only days. Thanks for coming to visit my other favorite peeps.
Aw.
Thanks. Oh, another
Thank
one.
you, Diana.
Oh, more.
Charmaine Super Chat, $13 Canadian dollars and 99 cents. Thank you.
Mm.
Hello, Pam. To SC and for Brad. Can you please say Sycamus, BC,
Oh,
to Schwab? It's just as beautiful as the Okanagan. Will be the highlight of my year.
I just want to say the artificial intelligence seems to agree with me.
I was gonna
There
say.
you go.
Great.
And I would say, Cordia, who's in the chat, she said, I wish the prosecutors would dive into the Karen Reed case. And if you have not looked into it, that is a fascinating case.
Okay. Let's stop right there before we get into the Karen Reed. Cordy, Adam, you just said she. I swear, Cordy is a he. Cordy
No, I
is
said Cordy said.
No, you said she.
Oh.
She. Yeah. So we have this little battle going on. So Cordy, she.
I assign gender to people in the
Yeah.
chat that I don't
Yeah.
know their gender of.
I've done it too.
But are
Yeah.
you right is the question.
So now, QWERTY right across the little keyboard there. QWERTY,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Okay. So this so-called person, QWERTY, works at some sort of nuclear plant. Tell me, Alice, tell me, Brett, if you were a betting person, which I totally am, would you say that QWERTY, the name QWERTY, just based on that information, male or female?
See, I think a man would be called JKL semicolon.
We could call
because it's lazier, because it's closer over here. QWERTY takes some effort because it's probably the non-dominant hand, and you have to
you
move
gotta
it
go
from
all
its
the way
neutral
across.
position.
Exactly.
Boom.
Men are lazy,
Analytical.
so therefore I'm going woman.
Oh, shit. Okay, go ahead, Alice.
See, but look,
Shut
even Cordy says, she, he, who cares? I'm whatever you want me to be.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
there you go.
in my dreams tonight, I'll be whatever you want to be. Okay, No. Alice, female or male? Just off your top of your head.
I mean, just because I want to antagonize Brett, I'll say it's a male.
Thank you. Two and two. All right, nobody wins. 2 and 2.
Everybody wins. How about that?
That's right.
You know.
But the Karen Reed case is a fascinating case.
I was
for
gonna
anyone
say.
that's not familiar with it.
You know, it's funny when we first started doing the podcast now almost 4 years ago, Brett and I looked at each other and we're like, we're going to run out of cases at some point. I guess we'll do this, show for a year and then we'll run out of all cases. No crime will happen again. And now the list just continues to grow, and it's fantastic, right? Because we hear from people about cases we never would have heard from otherwise. And we're getting to do cases that aren't just famous, but could really use the attention.
I mean, the whole reason we started Legal Briefs was to do breaking cases, but there's so many. It's just impossible. This, I don't know what it is. I don't know if true crime's gotten more popular and we just know more about it. But this last year, between Idaho and Murdaugh and Delphi And we talked on our
Corey
other
Richins.
podcast. We talked about Corey Richins last night, and it's like in any other
Oh.
year that case would be dominating the headlines.
Yeah.
And then you got Karen Reed. I think we're going to try and wait till the trial for that one, just because there's so much conflicting information. I'd like to actually hear a trial on it.
There's a
dive
lot
into it. But yeah, I mean, it's wild. I mean, it's just like I said. I don't know if it's just this is an effect of the true crime boom that we know about these cases more.
Well, yeah.
Or if it's really just that in the last year there have been
it feels like there's
so
been
many.
so many.
Exposure, I think, is definitely increased as well. I mean, I only live 2 hours away from where the Murdoch case happened, and the very first attention I paid to it at all was when the trial started. I mean, I heard everything that would come out in the news about it, but I paid no attention until the trial started, and then I was like, "What?"
We were kind of the same way. I mean, we were kind of the same way on it.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to teach you something new if you don't know it. Alexa just gifted 5 memberships. Now, sadly, Alice and Brett, it's not going to play the Rockin' Around because it's a different tune that goes with that one.
Can't wait to see what it is.
What is a membership?
The channel membership.
Hey, hold on. Are you guys not monetized?
We are the worst
do
business
ads,
people
but
of
that's
all
it.
time. We're not
You guys-
monetized. We don't know anything that we're doing.
I thought that was just like
Oh.
you subscribe to the channel. Is that different from a membership?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's something different.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know
Sunny
anything
is
about
like,
it.
you guys, I thought you were smart.
Yeah.
We barely even we actually don't monetize any of the only thing we monetize are lives. We don't monetize like
one
with
second.
the Jameson, for instance, is not monetized.
Wow.
Dear.
I mean, other than it has ads in it, but
Right.
like
Yeah.
from the podcast.
I'm so sorry, but you are missing the boat a little bit. Like,
The
honestly.
podcast is really our thing. We
do your
barely
own thing.
understand YouTube. I mean, YouTube is like a
Sunny, help
mystery.
us. Don't
Don't even
Brett
get us
keep
started
talking.
on TikTok.
You know what?
Don't let
Fine.
Brett talk. Why don't
Look
you
at-
just help us, Sunny?
Look what Bob
I'm
Mott is
Generation
doing.
X, okay?
You just go over and see what Bob Mott is cranking in over there, okay?
Look, we love Bob, but Bob's much more all online than we are.
Yeah, 2 people one night donated 50 memberships each.
I don't even know what that
50.
means. What does it mean to donate a membership?
Okay, so
Sonny, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, you know better than I.
I do actually. So let me go. No, just kidding. If the music goes off again. But anyway, so when someone donates some membership, it allows them to become a member for a month for free. One second. Mhm. So in this case, I'll just say that so Ryan Hardiman, you got a gift certificate from Alexa. Stumblegrape did. Donnie Kuntz, Verity Rudder, and Peace Train. Hey, Peace Train. Those people all got a membership. So for 1 month, they get a membership. Now, the thing that's so great about memberships is not only does it help the channel out, it goes, sorry. Right. Look at Adam over there. Nothing. He's just sitting there. Did you
I don't
not
dance.
hear what Tom said? Yeah, that's a lie. So basically, those people get a chance to test out your, memberships for whether it's emoticons that they get to use. Like the little emoticons that you can.
I love emoticons. I make a lot of use of
I
them.
don't know.
Yeah. So the more members you have, the more you can make of those emoticons yourself. So
You can also host member only live
Member-only
streams,
lives.
or you can have like a chat with just your paid members, more of an intimate setting, kind of like a Zoom.
With the fire, for instance.
With the fire. There you
Yeah,
go.
there you
Yeah.
go.
We are
So,
nodding as if we understand.
As
I
if
just
we
want
Different
you
channels
guys
have
to know.
different perks.
I
Yeah,
was
we're
gonna
terrible
say,
at this.
I mean, it's one of those things, when you're old and retired, and you're gonna be like, good thing I did that YouTube money stuff, monetization. So you're gonna say it one day.
Thank you. So thank you again, Alexa. But thank you, Miss Depp. Miss Depp says, Brett and Alice, your podcast.
Oh no, don't.
Because
We
that's
gotta
gonna
do-
have
we
music.
gotta
It's gonna
dance to
read
it
it
first.
for us. Remember.
Oh, that's right. I'm
We got-
like dancing and
I'm like already dancing. This is called
I know.
preemptive dancing.
Mhm.
Adam's just sitting there. Tom called you out. I was sitting there. I'm too busy moving my head, and then all of a sudden I'm like, "Is that him dancing?" No, I
You know
don't
what?
think so.
It's just because this is the most exercise I get in a day.
Yeah, seriously.
Mine is clicking the mouse. To be honest, I'm not even kidding. My bed is right behind me, behind this green screen.
Amazing.
because my computer's right
Oh.
here at the
I
window.
just assumed that was your actual background. You're telling me that's a green screen?
Shit, no, it's my actual background.
She lives in the North Pole. She lives in
I just all that beautiful
Basically.
decoration. I love it.
Well, you guys can't see the green screen in my head. No.
not even a little.
Okay, let me put it this way. In my head, this is what I would love to have.
That
love
sounds
it.
pretty awesome.
When I get off the computer, and I go lay in bed with my iPad, I have on the big monitor here.
There you go.
Christmas tree, happy holiday.
This is Deb Super Chat, $9.99. Thank you. Brett and Alice, your podcast on adulthood was so insightful, especially in light of the twists and turns Delphi was going to take. I'll give it a listen. My only complaint was Alice wasn't in that one.
Yeah, we did that one with Allison Dixon, who is a New York Times bestselling author and has her own podcast, Ding Dong Darkness Time, which you guys should all check out. And she's like an expert on cults, so she came in to do that. And look, Adolfo Costanzo is an example of someone, one of the very few examples in Mexico of someone who murdered people as part of an actual sort of cult sacrifice type thing that he believed, whether he believed it or not, his followers believed that through the sacrifice, they were granted protection in their cocaine smuggling trade that they were engaged in. And he was sort of the high priest of this narco-Satanist cult is what they often call it. But yeah, I mean, with the Odinist thing, here's sort of a tie into that. But that was a wild case to learn about, and probably could have spent even more time on it. But it was great to have Allison, who's such an expert in those things, on. And Alice doesn't like to talk about that kind of stuff anyway. So
the reason is because I am despite being a prosecutor and a true crime podcast co-host, I am a huge weenie and terrified of all things scary.
Or come over here, I'll fix that.
It's my
it's her shame.
Right there. It's a criming shame.
There you go, criming shame.
Yeah. Can I just say, I have to say one thing about this because it's irritated me ever since they dropped the 136 memorandum. Okay. How could they possibly get Odin wrong, saying that it said Hail Odin? They can't even figure out the right F. I'm sorry, but that looks so stupid on their part. Okay. In the defense memorandum, the F would go down, not up. And if it's an F at all, okay, that's just stretching it. But I'm just like, how do you put that out there? And then you don't think people are going to do their homework, or why didn't they do their homework? That's the only thing I have to say about that.
A lot of people don't do their homework, Sonny.
Yeah,
that's actually the absolute truth. You know, we try a lot of cases to juries, and it is actually amazing how a lot of people, not your listeners, I'm sure, not our listeners, will take for whatever they're told as gospel.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's amazing how many people file legal or court papers without proofreading the documents.
You have no idea.
Many of them are lawyers.
Many of them are lawyers.
I wasn't going to name names, but
like, so yeah, like I do a lot of appeals.
Sorry. Oh, it's coming in double.
I like doubles. Twice the fun.
Okay. Excuse me.
So the only thing I was going to say is I file a lot of briefs, and sometimes you'll have to have oral argument on those briefs. So you always have to reread them. And the number of times you're rereading your brief and you find a typo, and it's like,
I do that in texting. I don't even proofread.
Well, it's like Twitter. You can reread your tweet or whatever we're calling it now 1,000 times. It doesn't matter. You will not see the error until you hit send.
I know.
Can I ask you, what is your, did somebody already ask this, but what is each of yours most, I don't know, what do I want to say? I don't want to say amazing case that you followed, but most standout case that, really kind of, took you here or whatever. Of all the cases that you've covered, which is the one that that sticks out the most to you that you did? Don't look at your don't look at your channel.
I'll say one. I mean, for a long time before there was an arrest made, it was Delphi, right? For me, it touched me deeply because it was wrong. It was everything that was wrong with the world, and it deeply upset me, especially as a parent, especially as a woman who used to be a young girl who would go on hikes all the time with her friends. But I will not say Delphi because we've talked a lot about it tonight, and I'll say another one. Asha Degree. If you don't know about this case, you need to go look it up. Asha Degree was a young girl who for reasons unknown. I mean, this is one of the great mysteries of a missing person. She still hasn't been found today, but she left in the middle of the night. She didn't have a fight with anyone. She was 9 years old and walked out into the storm. And she lived kind of like on a country road, a 2-lane highway, and just started walking in the rain. We think to meet somebody. It's not clear. And she seemed to have taken shelter in like a kind of garage area, and she left behind a couple things, including a wallet-sized school photo of a girl who's never been identified. I mean, it is one of those mind-boggling facts about the case, and she's gone. She's absolutely gone, and it's a devastating case. There's no indication that there was abuse, that there was catfishing or anything like that. But what makes a young girl leave her bed in the middle of the night and walk into a storm and disappear forever?
And Alice stole my answer because I was going to say Asha Degree. Asha Degree is the greatest mystery of our time, and it's a case that most people have never heard of. But when you read it, it is just it will stick with you like nothing else, because there's so much that happened in it that is utterly inexplicable. And we covered that case a couple years ago, and it still sticks with me. It's a case we always like to talk about because it's one of those that you feel like whatever happened to her, and it seems pretty clear that foul play, she fell victim to that, whether she was meeting someone or she ran into the wrong person on that stormy night when she walked off into the rain. Something bad happened to her, and it's a case that needs to be solved, and it's been 20 years now.
I was just going to ask what year that happened in, because 9 is not an old enough age to really be self-sufficient enough to disappear on your own.
Exactly. And this is not a runaway situation. The things that happen around her leaving are very interesting. This is, again, not a fight, not an abuse situation, not it was planned, right? A normal person, whether you're a child or an adult, is asleep at that hour. So you had to know you wanted to leave that night and stay awake in order to leave.
Lock the door behind her when she left.
Is this Asha or Asia?
Asha.
A-S-H-A.
Oh, okay. So I would say Asha, but it's Asha. Okay, gotcha. Because I was hearing what Cordy was hearing was Asia, as in the continent. Asha Degree. Okay, right. So this is a little black girl out of
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
Yeah.
Where in North Carolina?
Little town in North Carolina.
I vaguely remember the face. Like when I look at the girl's face.
I mean, and especially that photo, it's not a photo. It's one of those like school photos. If you grew up, this is around my age, 20 years ago, you would trade like, school wallet size photos. But the thing is, this is not a girl who went to her school.
Never been identified.
Unidentified girl completely. How is that even possible? This is before the days of AI. This is not a clip out of something on a magazine. But we've always said, we said this in our podcast when we covered it. If we can identify that girl, I think it could unlock a massive key to what's happening here.
I live 30 minutes from Shelby, and I've never heard of this case.
Wow, you
definitely I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
I mean, we didn't dwell on this issue as much as you probably could, but it is also one of those cases that raises the concern, and it's a real concern in true crime, that unfortunately a little black girl like Asha doesn't draw as much attention, even though the facts of her case are they are stunning. I mean, when you read the case, you like I said, you will be utterly consumed with trying to figure out what happened to her. And it's amazing that it's gotten so little mainstream attention.
I stayed up all night after we covered it.
And and that's why that when what's her name, Carly Russell, pulled that whole disappearance shit, and I remember like her brother kind of made a comment about like like before they found out that it was like the hoax, but he was made a comment about that, like basically, the blacks, whatever, even the indigenous and stuff like that. Like I said, it's the floor girls and stuff like that. They don't reach that type of thing, and it pisses you off a little bit, because you do feel like there's that, you have to have this certain look.
Right. Madalena Kojikarji, another little girl from North Carolina that's been missing for more than a year. She hit national media for a week or two, and then not a word since, hardly.
Yeah. Anyways, so I'm gonna go listen to that. That sounds very interesting. So thank you for bringing that one to our attention, Allison Brett. Because someone said something about candy wrappers left behind.
Yeah. So it was pouring down rain. It's a storm, and so essentially, at some point when the police are looking for her, they find this little shed on a property. And Alice has talked about that photograph. Well, where they found the photograph, they also found candy wrappers. And it almost seemed like she was in that shed waiting for someone, staying out of the rain, eating candy in the middle of the night, and maybe drop that photograph that she had with her. I mean,
and it was
like
candy that she had gotten earlier in the day, which is so interesting.
It was Valentine's Day.
Right. You may have thought, right, February 13th. You may have thought like, oh, maybe someone was luring her into a car with candy, but no, this was candy she received earlier that day. So she had packed it herself, which if you're 9 years old and you're leaving home, yeah, I would probably bring candy instead of, say, a sandwich, right?
I mean, it's so touching. Oh. She took her basketball uniform. She took like a book from the library, a Dr. Seuss book. I mean, just so like innocent and pure in what she's doing. And you just think about whatever monster was out there that she either ran into or seems more likely. And she was very sheltered. Her parents didn't let her use the computer. You talk about grooming. It was 20 years ago, so it was a little bit before what we have now, but nevertheless, right. And just, I don't know. There's so much mystery there, and you just feel like nobody ever really looked at it. It's particularly, and now like the FBI is involved, and there's more investigation.
Yeah.
But so
20
much
years
time
later,
has
so much time has passed. Witnesses, memories fades. People die. If they know anything, information dies with them. I mean, this is just devastating.
Well, what's kind of cool as time has had advanced, and even hopefully maybe with the JonBenet Ramsey case, is that a lot of these cases from 65 years ago, 45 years ago, not because the detective solved the case, but because DNA they brought back, like the way that DNA has advanced, is cool in the fact that some of these older cases, are, I don't know what type of DNA was, if there was any left on, her situation, or if it was just, do you know if there was DNA on Asha?
They never found her. They found her backpack wrapped in, this is why they suspect foul play, right? They found her backpack wrapped in a garbage bag, buried.
Two garbage bags.
Two garbage bags. And I don't know that there's any DNA. Sometimes in these cases, the police won't let on if there's DNA, but you're totally right, Sonny. DNA technology it's making leaps and bounds. I mean, 1 year on top of the other, we're getting more advanced. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. DNA, when you test it, is consumed. So you quite literally burn up DNA when you do it. And that's why you'll see in certain cases, really old cases, they'll hold back DNA and not test it until they think the technology advanced enough to be able to do it, because it may be their one shot. And there may not be enough DNA to do anything now, but the hope is in 10 years, that little bit of DNA can actually lead to something in the testing.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've heard that with the JonBenet case even, there were, I heard that with, the Madeleine McCann case.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, they said that, like, that was a shock to me, really, when JonBenet's dad was talking about, God, why can't I think of his name all of a sudden? I know his name all the time.
John Ramsey.
Thank you, JonBenet, John Ramsey, right? People steer on this one, but anyways, like when he was saying that, like certain things hadn't been sent for DNA testing, so now those items will be. And stuff like that. So you know what? That's one case. I know we were talking about cases. That little girl's case breaks my heart so badly. from all those years ago when I remember it. You know, I'm like 54, right? And it's like Little John Bonet, just you know, it was Christmas, right? And this beautiful little pageanty girl, even though I'm not a fan of pageanty kids looking like adults and stuff like that, whatever. But it just her story, I just want it to be solved. And OJ, you're guilty as shit. Okay, but dude, no. Just but Tom Webster said, can you describe what a prosecutor is looking for during jury selection process?
Well, if you listen to Legal Briefs, we actually did a whole episode on it. So that's a shout out for Legal Briefs.
That's a great question, though, Tom. And the answer is it depends on the case. It absolutely depends on the case. You know, there isn't just one set you're looking for if you're on the prosecution or the defense side. If it's you want to know everything about these people, and you have to know how your witnesses present. In one case, maybe you want people who hate the police. In another case, maybe you want people who love the police and have, you know, law enforcement members in their family. You have to be able to be nimble with your set of facts and know what plays best. But at the end of the day, we are just making judgments on, you know, judging a book by its cover, because someone could be seemingly law enforcement lovers, but aren't, you know. And so it's kind of it's a fool's errand to try and really figure these things out.
Have either of you ever had a true crime fan that you didn't realize was a true crime fan until they made it on the jury? Or
every time I have a trial, I'm always wondering, is this going to be the trial where somebody in the jury is like, because one of the questions that always get asked is, does anyone on the venire, does anybody know any of the litigants, the prosecutors or the defense attorney? And I'm always like, this is going to be the time when one of them stands up and says, well, yeah, I listen to that guy's podcast. But it hasn't happened yet. But we do, you know, we get these questionnaires, and those are the kind of questions that are asked. What do you listen to? You know, what do you watch? Right. And depending on like the prosecution, like if I see somebody listens to the prosecutors and watches, like, you know, live PD or something, and I'm going to be like, oh,
a law enforcement officer.
Married to law enforcement. This person seems like they probably like the prosecution. Honestly, jury selection, when you actually get into it, it happens so fast that it's much harder to think it through the way people think you're thinking it through. Like, people are standing up, they're answering questions, and you're trying to find their numbers and like mark them down. And really, the only thing that we want are people who say they can actually listen to the evidence and weigh it. And you would be surprised how many people, when the question is asked, you know, do you not trust police? Do you not trust prosecution? Do you not trust the government? Will raise their hand and be like, yeah, I don't trust anything they say. And if you know, and I think they're all a bunch of liars. And some of that is probably people who just don't want to be on a jury. But some of it is very true. I mean, that's just how they feel. And it's unfortunate it's that way, but that's something
I'd love to
we
be
just
on
don't
a
want those
jury.
people on our jury.
Yeah. I'd love to be on a jury, you know, and not some stupid case either. I want to be on a legit like murder trial case.
You want sequestered.
Yeah.
You want sequester? You know, I could use a little sequestering. Just watch some Netflix on the, you know, at night.
I was gonna say, we'll go, if you guys don't mind, we'll go another 10 minutes and then let you head on.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Fig says, Alice, serious question. Obviously, you're preparing for this. Not. If you had an important podcast show scheduled and Brett got instant laryngitis and Adam was busy, would you consider having me help cancel it until Brett's better?
Fig, you want to come on? Come on over. I'm always looking to make Brett, you know, work for his position. Here
I go, getting replaced.
Look, what we call this is a you know, iron sharpens iron over here. If he knows that there's someone after his spot, maybe he'll just show up more.
Fig was the first person who taught us that you could do all these fancy things on here, like pop documents up and stuff. So we started doing that on our own stuff.
That's right.
We didn't know you could do any of that. And then Fig's like asking questions. He'll be like,
he's like highlighting
so in
things
the filing, like what happened? And we say, well, you know, they said this one thing, and all of a sudden the document pops up, and there's where they said exactly what we just said. It's like, wow, this is amazing.
He's been known to groom a person or two. So
yeah, it's what I call a sleut, not a slut, but a sleut. Okay, you guys just seriously, we have our fans, okay. And then Figgy there is just trying to make you ask Adam jealous is what he's
He
saying.
wakes up that way most days. It's like,
Yeah.
what can I do today to get Aspen jealous?
I know. It always feels good when somebody comes in going, "Is Adam on? Adam on?"
Aw.
No, so
yeah.
sorry. Come back. It's just me here, guys.
People always complain when Alice isn't there. I don't know that anybody would complain.
I'm
about
sorry
his
for
show.
that. I will stop complaining.
So let me ask. Oh, hey, I went blurry. Could be the drinking. Nope, there I'm back. Okay. Let me ask you guys something. That's it. End of story. Just gonna ask you something.
I love it. That's exactly how I feel. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. That was a brilliant
That's what I thought.
question, and I agree 100%.
I feel the same way. Adam, do you?
Glad we can all agree on this.
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, if there's anything you guys wanted to say whatsoever, about anything, actually, I don't even care what it is, just anything at all. You guys want
That's a dangerous platform.
No, yeah,
you're giving us.
anything.
yeah.
You can talk about the Roman Empire here, right?
No.
Is that what we're supposed to talk about?
You can try your Christmas dance again. Stand up and show us what you got there.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, I have to have. Diana wants to know what I think about Maura Murray.
Relive your glory day.
Yeah, relive my glory days.
Says, what's funny is that Adam's a fun guy, and yet when the songs come on, he sits there like a toad on a stool.
Maybe that's his dance.
It's not a dance.
It's like very Bob Fosse minimalism.
Yeah.
So to answer Diana's question, I think she went to the woods and died of exposure.
She went?
Maura Murray. Diana's asking questions in the chat.
Oh, what did Brett? Okay, I was going, which one? Maura Murray?
Too fast for YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah.
What did Brett Nellis really think happened? Oh. Yeah.
I think she died of exposure. That's
we say this a lot. Unfortunately, in these kind of missing person cases, if there wasn't, if they were not met with foul play, it's actually really hard to find a missing person in brush. It doesn't even have to be that dense. We've done searches before. It just, nature does its job and covers up really anything that's not moving. And so people are always like, well, how could you miss an entire person? We had 300 search parties, comb the 10-mile radius. We walked hand in hand. And the answer is, it's actually pretty easy for nature to take over pretty quickly. And so it's very possible that she's very close to the side of the road, in fact.
And a good example, that's Brandon Lawson, which is one of the sort of great true crime cases. Brandon Lawson disappeared in the middle of a 911 call. His truck broke down. He makes a 911 call. It is a 911 call that when you hear it, people have, since he made it, tried to figure out what exactly he's saying. Bizarre. And you think going in like, well, when I hear it, I'm going to know what he's saying. And then you hear it and you have no idea. And it's like, and there's all this. And so there were so many conspiracies about what happened to him. And our theory was he probably, unfortunately, was high on drugs. He wandered off into the wilderness and he died of exposure. And last year, they finally found his body very close to where his truck disappeared. And it seems like that's exactly what happened. And I think people really underestimate, number one, the ability for search parties to miss you when they're looking for you. And number two, the ability to very close to civilization, unfortunately, succumb to the elements. And I think that's what happened to Maura Murray.
Right.
If you guys don't mind, because I was trying to scroll through chat, apparently we didn't talk about Karen Reed enough.
I don't really know what to say about her yet. I mean, we're going to cover it eventually. I mean, I've seen sort of the headlines or whatever, but I just don't know enough to really comment in any capable way.
Yeah, like I don't know. Like, I mean, I heard the name recently, but I didn't.
And the reason is we try not to just add noise to whatever headlines there are. We try to go to the primary text, right? Like we read transcripts, we read the briefings. Sounds like you do too, Adam. We do that so that we hope to offer something that isn't just there. And when we haven't read those filings, and there are no transcripts, I think right now, we just don't want to say something that is not informed because we think there's plenty of noise out there on YouTube, and we don't need to add to the noise.
Yeah. And sorry in chat too, we can't get to every question out there because we're trying to, talk to the guests as well. And then I'm just like, it's hard to sit there and try to do everything and then see everything that's being on in chat. So Again, sorry we couldn't get to all the questions. It's just not possible. So sorry, Miranda, if I just seen kind of a comment that said, well, they didn't answer my question. And that was about the Karen Reed. So that's why I went back to that one. So
An interesting case, though.
Yeah, apologies for that.
Fascinating case, but I really
we will
have
cover
no
it
answers
once
for you
we've
yet.
done
But
our
one
research.
day, yes.
So you guys have the case you have coming up next is a whole family that's gone missing that people haven't heard about as much.
From Canada.
From Canada.
Right?
Well, no wonder.
Well,
No
I'm
wonder
sorry,
no
what?
one's heard about it.
Well,
You know,
actually,
the Canadians,
you know,
they're too nice to even mention their disappearance.
they're too nice to even. This is a fascinating case because this is, you know, they disappear kind of into thin air, but before they do, like the hour leading up to it, they are talking to family members, they're seeing family members, and then all of a sudden they disappear. So you guys should
It's a
listen.
family
to
of 4.
Wow.
Yeah.
Family of 4 who's offered sort of a great job opportunity. And the person who offers them the job opportunity is helping them pack and all this other stuff. And all these people see them and they sort of drive off into the night and they're never seen again.
Who's this? Are you talking about the Jameson family?
No, this is our next case.
Oh, this is
Trying
your
to
next case.
trying to keep it a little under wraps.
And
Like, not say
Oh,
exactly what it is.
When do you normally drop your episodes?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, and that's on. And so, I mean, if it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, so the Prosecutors, which is so we basically have a true crime podcast that talks about historical mysteries. That's the Prosecutors. Then Legal Briefs, it comes out on Thursday, and it tends to be either sort of real-time stuff like Delphi. A lot of our Delphi stuff is on Legal Briefs, or we'll just spend some time going through an issue. Like we did a jury selection episode where we just talked about how does jury selection work? What do prosecutors do? What are the various things that are happening? So that's what we do on Legal Briefs, and those are our 2 podcasts.
Right.
I was gonna just to ask you guys, did you guys follow the Missy Beavers case?
One of the very first cases we did.
Okay. And if you said that, sometimes
I have thought about going back and doing it again because I think we only did 1 or 2 episodes on it, and you could do more.
Watch Tom Webster's video.
Okay.
I mean, you talk about
a deep
an
dive.
insane case.
Man, even with video, I mean, this is kind of like Delphi, right? Where you have video, it seems like you should have enough information to have made an arrest,
I know.
and the fact that it's still unsolved is just mind-boggling.
Right.
Male or female, because that person in the video almost has.
We talked about
traits.
this. I mean,
We
there's
talked about
so
this
much.
a
There's
lot.
so much female about the person.
Yeah,
But it's
I
such a
don't know.
violent crime that it's
Such a violent
I
crime.
know.
Which is not to say that women can't be violent, but nevertheless, usually
but
men are
the
violent.
kind of, you know, this is also very gruesome, but unfortunately
Yeah.
Brett and I live this world in our professional life. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of physical effort to inflict this type of harm, that type of crime.
Right.
It's not easy, right? You actually have to be physically fit to be able to deal these blows.
Right.
Mm.
Angel, just quickly, it's Aspen or Adam. My real name's Adam, but everyone calls me Aspen.
I call him Adam.
You can call me whatever you want.
Yeah.
I'll answer to anything.
Salute. All right. Okay. Anyways, honestly, you guys, it's been a pleasure having you on. Is there any last minute thoughts about anything you want to talk about, Alice or Brett, regards to your channel? Maybe you'll like take some Canadian advice, perhaps monetize. I don't know.
Look, if you'll show us the way, Sonny, we will learn. But we are rubes when it comes to that sort
we're
of
so
thing.
bad at this.
We're
You
so
don't
bad.
think fake would
Just
get
give
done?
everything away for free. I don't know what to
That's
say.
right. That's basically what we do. We're terrible business people. I will say this much
Oh, go ahead.
about
That's why you're not defense attorneys.
that's
There you go.
we're not throwing shade at anyone on the other side
I'm
of the
just
V.
kidding.
I will say this, you know, I think a lot of
One
people
question.
recently or otherwise will say, oh, you know, we shouldn't be taking entertainment out of true crime or whatnot. I will say this, the incredible communities that have come up around certain cases like Delphi, like Missy Beavers, have potential and do incredible good. And the reason that we are all drawn to these cases, I don't think is not bad at all. Yes, there's an entertainment aspect because we are seeing something that is fascinating from a human perspective, because we are all humans in this world, and the fact that these horrendous things can happen to each other, of course, will draw our attention naturally. But I think even more important than that, oftentimes we use true crime in these real life cases as a lens by which to process the chaos in our own lives. And there's some deep understanding that can come from that to better understand your fellow human and to better understand yourself and to not discount that. And we try to bring that level of human understanding when we discuss these cases, hopefully with a lot of empathy and a lot of respect for the victims, but to also seek a deeper understanding of what these cases reveal about ourselves and our society. So if that sounds appealing to you, pop on over to our podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say to Shelley, no, I've never seen anything like that. I've never seen she's asking about the memorandum where
Yeah, thank you for answering that,
includes,
because I
yeah,
was like, I didn't
it
wanna
includes
answer.
a statement where it posits that the guards could have said, if you don't confess to the murders, we're going to do something to your family. And then there's a footnote, and the footnote says they never said that.
But they could have.
But they could have. And it's like, yeah, that is so
Isn't that so
ridiculous and
strange? I
improper
know.
to include.
Wasn't that this like
Right.
strangest, stupidest thing to sit there? But like,
I mean, it borders on ethics, right? Like there are
Yeah.
certain rules that in codes of canon that all attorneys have to abide by. We take an oath when we get sworn into a bar and when you enter an appearance in a jurisdiction or a court. And that skirts pretty close to the line of what you're allowed to do under the code of ethics.
I mean, we have tried very hard to be fair to these attorneys, but a lot of what they did it's just troubling as a lawyer. I mean, it's just troubling what they did and the way they did it. And we always say the problem with these big cases is there's so much focus on them, and people look at that and they think that's the way the system works. And they think this is what defense attorneys do. And we're very defensive of defense attorneys. Like we have episodes talking about how much we love, federal defenders and public defenders and all this other stuff. And then you see what they do, and it just feels sleazy. And frankly, a lot of what they do reinforces some of the worst stereotypes about defense attorneys. And the fact of the matter is defense attorneys have a very hard job. And a lot of times what they're doing is upholding certain constitutional protections that we all care about. And that's one reason that it has been really hard for me, the Delphi case, and the way that the defense attorneys acted to maintain what I try to be objectivity, right? And that's just an example. That footnote is just an example of that. And just to piggyback on what Alice said, I mean, I hope that, one thing about our podcast is you're always going to hear exactly what we think. You're always going to hear what we feel. We're never going to tell you what we think you want to hear. And our goal is just to make the law more accessible and to help people understand exactly what's going on in these cases.
well, that
We appreciate
130.
that.
Yeah, Brett. That 136 page was just a bunch of horse shit. Sorry, but it was. It really was.
But I think every action has consequences. I personally feel like everything there should be. I encourage transparency. Like, I don't care what's good for like a case. I want cameras in the courtroom, but that's just my selfish nature. But I do think that transparency is the best thing for everything. But actions have consequences, and I think we're seeing some of the consequences play out for some of the actions that have taken place in this case.
Well, Mitch Westerman's wife will agree with that. Divorce papers filed yesterday. Done. I guess he didn't like the girlfriend, Adam said. Yeah, I don't think he liked the girlfriend.
I don't know. Yeah.
But
That guy's having
I forget
a rough
who
fall.
leaked that. Did
It was in
Rosie
the filing.
accidentally
It was
do
in the
that?
defense filing.
Yeah.
It was in the affidavit.
The guy that was charged with it, he's now, facing a misdemeanor. And yesterday his wife filed for divorce.
Yeah.
I
The
will
crazy
say-
thing. Oh, go ahead, Alice.
Alice, go first.
No, Alice froze.
She froze.
So I'll talk. This is my dream come true. So the one thing I will say that's wild about the defense filings is every time they file something, we learn something bad for the defense. It's just amazing. Every time they filed something, it's like, oh, so that's what happened. Well, that corroborates every bad thing we thought.
Did you see Rosie dancing? I did a
missed
video.
it. I saw the video. I think I saw your tweet about it, but I didn't
Thank you.
actually watch it because I was like, I don't want to see him dance.
Yeah, and I don't like to see the misfortune of anyone, but I mean, I feel like the kind of antics that were happening there clearly, I think are unfair also to Richard Allen. because I feel like, because, he's not been convicted of anything at this point, his rights are important. And I think, the evidence I've seen that's come from the ex-defense team's offices, I'll say, or people connected to them, have not been anything that would help him.
And let me just say
anything
this.
they could hurt him.
And y'all got me on Delphi, so whatever.
All right.
Let me just say
That was
this.
our plan. That was our plan all
In
along.
the last filing, in the response to the state's filing in the mandamus petition, the defense filing says that there are only 2 attorneys basically in the world who can defend Richard Allen, and they're Baldwin and Rosie. And that is absolutely absurd. There are thousands of attorneys in Indiana who can competently represent Richard Allen. And if there is legitimate evidence that a Odinism conspiracy killed these girls,
which didn't,
those attorneys will be able to marshal that evidence and defend him. These people are not special. They don't have some like gift from God that they're the greatest defense attorneys in the history of mankind. And this is not about them. It's about Richard Allen, and it's about the girls. It's about getting justice for the girls and ensuring that Richard Allen's constitutional rights and his right to a trial are honored. And their focus on themselves is an affront to really everything we care about in the justice system.
Yeah, I mean, all it came across about was ego there. Like when I read that, I was just like, really? You guys are so special. You guys are the only ones that can try this case, eh? I don't think so. Anyways, my final thought is Fran Gall stays and the lawyers stay. That's my guesstimation at what happens there. But we'll see. We'll see with that stuff. Did Adam do this to you? Did he get you riled up? Do you need a hug?
I do need a hug.
Okay, well, let's have it over.
I need more Christmas music.
Yeah.
Well, so nobody's donated. Okay, well, I can play. Actually, you know what?
I want to hear Alice's thoughts on it.
Yeah, okay. Alice,
On which part?
Sorry, I ranted. I apologize.
no,
Everything that
love
Brett just said.
you love rants. Go ahead. Rant.
No, that's absolutely right. Right. Defense attorneys are supposed to represent their client, and what we know starting before the Franks motion, frankly, all we've talked about are the defense attorneys. The defense attorneys continue to talk about due process for themselves. There is no due process for the attorneys. There's due process for his client, Richard Allen, who they barely mention. And this is why, the best thing for Richard Allen was to have these former counsel removed, because not just these filings, not just this leak of the evidence, which, by the way, shows serious inability to keep with the court's orders under a protective order of very sensitive information. And this is not just because of the Franks motion. This is because of very serious concerns of them violating attorney-client privilege that can only be waived by Richard Allen himself. And he hasn't done that. And that completely undermines his ability to have a good defense. And what I care about, even as the prosecution, especially as the prosecution, is I want the defendant to have his constitutional rights protected, because guess what? When you're the prosecution and the defendant doesn't have a fair trial, it will go on appeal and it'll be sent back and you'll have to do it again. So the prosecution wants more than anything for this to be a good defense team and for Richard Allen's constitutional rights to be secured.
Yeah.
I agree.
End of the day, for me, I just, exactly that. It's going to play out the way it's going to play out, whatever the Supreme Court decides. Right. You just want the fairness for Richard Allen, justice for Abby and Libby, not to have an appeal and stuff like that, whatever. I would just like it to get back on course again. I mean, I do really feel so badly for the families, like anyone that's ever been in this situation, no matter what case it is, where especially those cases where they haven't found a body. Oh my God. Like that's so detrimental to any human being to have that. But, I just, like I said, whether it's Abby and Libby's case or anybody else, you feel sorry for the families because you just want them to be able to move on to another process of this case. And it's been so long, like I said, crazy that it's February 14th, like the other case that you said as well. Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
The
case was also
valid. But anyways, just with Delphi, it stole my heart because of the 2 girls. As a mother, And Brett, I'm pretty sure. Do you have children, Brett?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and and as a mother, Alice, you know how much if this happened to your own children, just you couldn't even fathom something like that happening. But it's like with Delphi, that these twists and these turns keep happening. Every time you think it's going this way, it goes that way, this way, that way, this way. And there's this ridiculous community with Delphi, to be honest. Like they're like, meaning people take it somewhat too seriously in a sense when they, like when they're literally let their emotions on somebody else's opinion affect them, type of idea. But it definitely has a lot of trolls to it, the Delphi community. But at the end of the day, I think that everyone that's in the true crime community, for the most part, besides the ones that are kind of from a different planet, for the most part, they're here because they care about people, they care about cases, and a lot of times it's like fake solves where it's a family member that something bad happened to, and then they find themselves kind of engulfed in this. Anyway, I'm just babbling there, Brett.
And I just want to say one other thing to who's a good listener of this channel, no doubt. But he says prosecutors are for the state's benefit, defense attorneys are for our benefit. No, you are the state. Prosecutors are for the people's benefit. You are the people. We are the ones who defend the rights of the people. We are the ones who keep you safe. We are the ones who put criminals in prison and try and protect you from their activities. Defense attorneys are important, but defense attorneys are for their clients' benefit. I took an oath to defend the Constitution. Defense attorneys don't take that oath because that's not their obligation. Their obligation is to defend their clients above all else. And in doing that, they defend the Constitution. But that is not their primary goal. So, this idea that prosecutors are not here for the general benefit is not true. We are here to defend you.
And very clearly, you just look at who the client is. This is not a value judgment. It is just a reality. The defense attorney's client is the defendant, as it should be. Because when you have a client, you view all of your advocacy through that lens. What is in the best interest of your client? And it's a singular person, as it should be, and as the Constitution wants to protect their rights. You know who the client is for the prosecutor? The people. That's literally our client when we are the prosecution. There is no other client that we are looking to.
I feel like the American flag should be waving right now. We the people, for the people, of the people. But no, I like that. You guys are very passionate there. Who dis? Learn your lesson. There you go.
No. And that is the
it's
thing.
A common
who
thing
dis
people
said.
say.
Yeah, it's something we hear all the time, which is why we're passionate about letting people know that you should know what your rights are. And your right is that the prosecutors are for your benefit. And if the public doesn't know that, that's a disservice.
Ooh.
Yeah. And we live in a democracy, a representative democracy. The state is you. We don't live in some sort of imperial monarchy where we're enforcing the will of the king against you. We are enforcing the laws that you and your representatives pass to protect you. And yes, when you are accused of a crime, you certainly need a defense attorney who will represent you. And we love defense attorneys, and we want good defense attorneys, and we want defense attorneys who know the law and know their clients' rights. That's what we want. I mean, I hate bad defense attorneys. They make my job harder.
Yeah.
Half the time I feel like I'm the one defending their client because they're not able to do it. It's a real, like, we want good people on both sides, but this notion that somehow, defense attorneys are really for you. I mean, if you're accused of a crime, then yes, they are.
Right. I've even got defense attorneys in my family.
Sorry, you got hold on.
And I claim them. They used to be prosecutors, like most.
We love defense attorneys. Alice is a defense attorney. What are we talking about?
No problem.
He's retired from the prosecution business.
That's right.
All right. You know what? I feel like that's in order. Christmas tree,
I'm just like, you're magical. I don't know where this music is coming from.
I know, it's amazing.
So it's coming
more
from
things I don't understand about podcasting.
Yeah,
and YouTube.
More techie stuff. So I have this is StreamYard that we're on, but I have Streamlabs, and Streamlabs allows it to come through. Um, and so I use Streamlabs for certain things, and I use StreamYard, but you know, a little bit of that techie stuff. So if you're into that, and I'm not really sure, Charmaine, who made Brett talk like that about Delphi. I think it was Adam. If I was to point any fingers, pretty sure Adam started it. Then it went down over there, and then he handed it over to Alice over here. Because I said we were not talking Delphi tonight.
No, you can't avoid it. You can't avoid it.
You can't avoid
No,
it.
it is hard because, you know, I know that. So, you know, like a big chunk of the fan base, in a sense, or the followers, the fan base. Just an honor being, no, just kidding. The fan base is Delphi. And then, you know, there's like the other side there, like we have some UK ones. But Delphi is such a huge case, obviously. And I get it. You know, me and Adam ourselves took a break, in a sense, from Delphi, because it got to the point that all we were doing was talking about the same regurgitated stuff over and over. And I have to feel it. I have to be, just like you guys talking about, I have to be genuine in everything I do. If I can't make a video, I can't do a live just to, you know, fake it and try to be something or say something or do something
we
that
weren't going to do Delphi episodes if there was nothing to talk about with Delphi.
Right.
So,
but then
you know,
came
luckily,
back.
like you
And
said earlier,
we're not opposed to Delphi whatsoever. We talk about Delphi a lot on our show. It was more that we think a lot of what's been going on, the more shows people do kind of point a spotlight on it, on things that actually it's not that out of the ordinary, and it's kind of giving it more fire, when really we just want the attention back on the girls, the victims, and Richard Allen,
Yes.
Rather than the sideshow that's
It's
currently
a total
happening.
shot. It's a total
Absolutely.
sideshow. That's the thing. It's a total sideshow.
Yep, absolutely agree.
and that was kind of what we didn't want to play into that, you know, like when, because really even before like the legal stuff really started to really take off this summer, you know, there was definitely a lull in information, like, you know,
There was nothing coming out.
the first kind of, you know, quarter of the year, there wasn't as much coming out about Delphi. And we, you know, like we said earlier, there clearly were a lot of other cases that we could talk about. So we just stopped covering Delphi so much, and then it's been hard to avoid it in the last few months. But
because it means a lot to us. I mean,
Right.
again, we're not.
But I agree with what you're saying 100% about giving fire to something that isn't as
It is a shit
atypical
show.
as a lot of people want it to be.
And look, once the Supreme Court rules, a lot of this
Yeah.
is going to shake out, and we'll just move forward. I mean, whether
Exactly.
it's they restore the attorneys or they move on from the attorneys,
Yeah,
we will move forward, and there will be a trial.
absolutely. It's just waiting for the process. Unfortunately for the family, again, you know, this whole Circus Act has to have, you know, happened. But, you know, at the end of the day, we have to go through it to get to that point where the case can get back on track where it belongs, instead of this 3-ring circus stuff that's going on like that. And honestly, I'm sorry, but the defense, the attorneys, this is because of them. This is legitimately because of them. They started this.
Well, the
Without it.
prosecution's just sitting back like, can we just do the trial?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you as a prosecutor, this is a nightmare. I mean, if you're the prosecutor and you just want to get to trial, this is all a nightmare, because you've got all your evidence and your witnesses lined up, you're ready to go, and it's like, oh my goodness.
Okay, criminality. Now, just to ask you the last question that I want to ask you. I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to keep you guys warm and cozy. Okay, just feel like you're in Canada over here in Westlaw. No, but anyways, the question was shit. I did it to myself. I totally forgot my question. My question. Hold on.
That's a
There was
great point that you made, Sonny.
Yeah, we love it. It's so
Did you
good.
love it? Did you feel where I was coming from?
Absolutely. I felt
Absolutely.
it deep
It's
down
amazing.
that words were not
Just
necessary.
touched me in my heart.
I remembered. Someone had asked earlier, just what do you guys feel about cameras in courtrooms in general? Do you believe that there's a place for them, or do you think that it adds more circusy, or, you know, do you think it should be closed off, or do you think that the public should see? Go ahead.
So here's the thing about cameras. In the abstract, they seem great because the public can participate in a larger group, right? The reality of the situation is cameras, wherever they are going to corrupt. So Congress, one of the reasons they're all a bunch of idiots is because everything they do is on television. If it wasn't on television, they wouldn't say some of the stuff they say on the floor of the Senate and the floor of the House. And I truly believe that the O.J. Simpson case was the way it was because of cameras. And the Casey Anthony case was the way it was because of cameras. So I love cameras in the courtroom as a podcaster because I can very easily cover the case, and that's great. Unfortunately, we're all human and we tend to react in a certain way when we're on camera. I think that the average case, which isn't on camera and isn't broadcast, is probably smoother, more professionally done, and more interested in justice than a case on camera. I just and the important thing for me is I want people to recognize that there is a downside to the cameras. Even if you still support them, just know that there is a downside to having them in a courtroom.
You got my brain. I swear it. I swear it. Alice, I'll have some of your brain too, but that's exactly.
No, I agree with Brett, especially because we've seen it play out, right?
Yeah.
Like even as an attorney, I'm fine with cameras in the courtroom. I just recognize when you're at trial and you start to have like a national, international spotlight on you, people start acting for the cameras unconsciously or consciously, and you begin to lose sight of what is going on. You lose sight of why you're there. It's now a reality TV show for a lot of people, and not just the attorneys, but the witnesses who are taking the stand. They now know that, you know, people are tweeting about them. They're self-conscious about the way they look because every sip of water they take is going to be scrutinized and analyzed.
Yeah.
And that type of a stage can truly change how people react on the stand and how
I mean,
people
testifying
is scary in and of itself.
Exactly.
I mean, I remember a witness in the Johnny Depp trial. People did not receive that witness well, and they owned a business. And the business reviews went to like 1 star on Google. I mean, like it had an impact in this person's life because millions of people were watching the Johnny Depp trial, you know, and they saw this guy testifying to his experience with those two. And they didn't like
and
him.
another thing to note, right? Like, I mean, courts are open. Just as a general matter, you should be able to walk into any courtroom that's not sealed and watch any trial that you want. And so people extrapolate and think, what's the big deal with cameras? Another thing to remember, especially when you're talking about criminal cases or even civil cases where there are victims. When victims take the stand, it is reliving probably the worst day of their life again. And that is so hard in and of itself. But in criminal cases, you have the right to confront your accuser. And so you can't just phone it in, quite literally. You can't have a video of you saying your testimony. You have to take the stand. And then to broadcast that across the world it could have a massive chilling effect that people need to understand. Victims can think, look, he did sexually assault me. But if I bring this case and he's going to make me go to trial, I have to take the stand. And then the entire world is going to slut shame me on TV. I mean, these are very serious, chilling concerns that could happen to victims. Will that happen in every case? No. But it's helpful to know that it's not just a one-way ratchet. You know, more cameras in a courtroom is always better. Look, again, I love watching TV. I love watching reality TV and court TV. But it's also very important to know the other side of the coin when you're making these important decisions of people's lives.
And I think that's we talk about this all the time. I just want people to have both sides of the argument. You know, I'm not saying I'm right about not really liking cameras. I just want you to recognize there is a cost and it's real. Right.
I know we need to go. I think that, you know, I watched a case last year and I think this is the worst case scenario. Is in Ohio, which is the only state I've ever seen this happen at. And it could be other states, but in Ohio, in a criminal case, witnesses have the right to opt in or out if the trial is being televised or recorded. They have each witness has the right to decide whether their testimony is one recorded or televised. And so imagine watching us, you know, in the case of this was the Pike County Massacre case.
Right.
And it was like a 12-week trial. And you would get like one witness, you'd get to hear everything they said. And then you'd have like 3 witnesses. You'd have no idea what was said or broadcast. So by the time the trial was over, you were like,
that's kind of weird.
What's happened in this case?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
that's a weird law, I thought. Sorry.
I know. So let's see here. Oh, I think we could go another 12 hours. No problem.
No, I gotta go.
No problem.
Look, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you guys for inviting
No.
us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
We'll
Yeah.
come back some other
We
time.
talked about so much Christmas.
We didn't really, did we?
We did a lot of dancing to Christmas songs.
We
We
did
That's
do
all that
dancing to
matters.
Christmas songs, and that's
I
important.
know I really wanted to talk about Christmas.
We did.
Another
We're good.
another live then.
Maybe
Yeah.
perhaps. Maybe I'll teach you guys how to say Canadian
would love
words
that.
and stuff and teach you how to monetize. But yeah, because Alice, before you go, okay, Brett, what's your favorite Christmas movie of all
Oh,
times?
I have so many. That's
Me
the
too.
thing.
Go on.
I mean, all the classics, right? Like Elf, Home Alone, Love Actually, all of those are high up there. But my like not specifically Christmas movie that I watch every single year without
Yeah.
fail for the last like 30 years is While You Were Sleeping with Sandra Bullock.
Aw.
Oh, yeah. Gotta love
I mean, that's
Sandra
just like,
Bullock.
just all the
Yeah.
feels.
I know. There's so many. Brett, what about you?
My favorite Christmas movie is Snowman's, which is the greatest Hallmark Christmas movie ever made.
Snowman.
You just
Snowman's.
lose
It's
respect
about
for him.
it's about a snowman who comes to life and is the
Yeah.
perfect boyfriend. It is
Yeah.
incredible. If you haven't seen Snowman's, rent it immediately. It will change your life.
Yeah.
Snowman's.
I know. I've been sitting there like every night, sitting there watching Bake Off Christmas scenes with Duff and stuff like that, and watching the things, the movies. And then I've done a couple lives where I go to the Earth Cam or to the Vancouver Harbor Cam on Vancouver Island, and they have the harbor there with the Parliament in Victoria, all with lights on it. And I just love Christmas. I was so sorry, Alice. It's not my fault.
No. There is no fault. I had the best conversation with y'all.
On there. I know, but I want to talk more about.
Right.
We
We hope
did
you guys
promise
come.
Christmas conversations, and
Maybe we can do another one.
It's
Don't
okay.
lie and say yes. I mean, if you don't really truly mean it.
We
You
know
have to
we don't
mean it.
lie, and we
Right.
also love to talk. So
Okay. Well,
it's what we do for a living, so it all works out.
yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure with you guys. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope I kept you. Well, we kept you cozy.
you sure
Adam is
did.
still asleep. Okay.
It was amazing. We loved
Yeah.
it.
I
Have a good night, everyone.
was so disappointed because I said to my husband, I was like, husband, no, you went to the store because I had to get a little bit of sleep in before the live. And I'm like, I wanted eggnog. I forgot. And I wanted.
Aw.
So no, I have to
Oh,
peach ice. Peach
I had
ice.
some eggnog tonight, as a matter of fact.
Don't you love it?
Good.
I made
I love
some
it.
Christmas
Love
cookies
eggnog.
tonight before
Love it.
this.
Christmas pudding?
I made Christmas cookies.
Oh, Christmas cookies.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I ate a lot of them by
I was about to
myself.
say, I need to come by your house then.
Ready for
I'll
a
bring you some
bake-off?
tomorrow, Brett.
There you go. Love it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you guys. So you guys, we're going to end out with our outro. Thank you guys in chat. Thank you for your donations and your super chats that Brett and Alice have no idea what they are, or memberships. Thank you guys so much. And we'll see you tomorrow night on Friday. So with that being said, thanks again and have a good night. This is Sunny Justice and Aspen Connor from It's a Crime and Shame, wishing you all a good night.